Well, hello friends, welcome back to the cabin. I don't know if it's the same where you live, but I'll tell you what, it certainly is hot here. The dogs pretty much stay in the cabin all day long, and then they sleep all night long. So anyway, we're getting ready to pour the concrete slabs down here, and I have to make up some brackets for the anchor bolts so that I can suspend them where we're going to pour the columns. Anyway, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, what I've got is a block, and the reason that this is so thick, by the time that I've got to have this raised up about 4.5 inches, because I'm going to use 6x6s. So in order to hold that up there high enough, I didn't have any threads. So what I'm going to do is screw that down there like so. See that little mark that I've got back there? That is 4.5 inches on each one of these. So I will screw that up to there like that. Then that will go across the form, and what I decided to do was on the side right here, I take a couple of these, bore me a hole in there. There's one. Okay, then I just set this on the end of the block, and we'll take one of these screws, stick that down in there. And there's one. We'll flip it over, do the same thing on this side. Like that. Then this is what I have come up with right here. And then what I can do is set this down in there like this, and these will slide right over the edge of that. And I've got some marks down here. There's one, and then there's the other one. It won't go this way, but it will go this way. But once I get the concrete in there and get that suspended above, get the concrete worked around, that will kind of hold it right there until it sets up. So now at first glance it looks like I've got these out of line, but I don't. And I'm certainly glad that I noticed it before I started pouring concrete. But when I got to studying and examining the layout for the frame of the track, there are 8 feet on each side, so there's 16 total. And the feet, the way that I've laid the columns out is they will meet at every joint of track. I've got 6x6s going to lay long ways like this, and then the feet will set on top of those. So at each joint we are supported, and then in the middle that foot is supported by that 6x6, and it'll have a lot of strength because we're only going 6 feet with it. But anyway, and the other thing is too, this last bunk, or this third one and the next one, will hold most of the weight of the log that I set up down on top of here. So it'll kind of be evenly distributed because the head of the log will pretty much be here. And the actual machine sits back here. But anyway, yeah, so I can't just use one 6x6. When I got to studying that, they are so far apart because the feet are about 3 inches wide and 6 inches long on the bottom, and then they got 2 holes to screw them down once you get it set. So what I did was I'm going to have to use 2 6x6s because each one of these is offset as we go down. So I'm going to have one rail here and one rail right beside that for the track to sit on because of the way that they have designed the feet on the track. So anyway, this is what it will be like. I will go back to a narrow one here, then a bigger one there, narrow one, bigger one, and then I think the last 2 are narrow if I remember correctly. But anyway, they are laid out correctly. So what I'm going to do is these 2 holes right here, I think if I figured it correctly, are going to use 22 bags of that Quikrete, 50-pound Quikrete. So I'm only going to pour 2 at a time. That way I don't have to do any more in a day. I'm mixing it up, really by hand in the mixer there. So that's what that's what this is going to look like when it's all said and done. So the two 6x6s side by side will give me a rail on each side at 11 inches wide and 5.5 inches tall, because I'm going to buy the pressure treated from the store because I don't have a way to mill anything now, and I didn't have anything that length. So but yeah, that should give me a really nice supported track all the way down, because not only am I going to anchor them here, but I'm also going to put timber screws in the side of it. So that will give me a nice rail, or a nice setup for the sawmill to ride on, and I don't think that I'm going to have any issues with the way that we're doing it. And you know, you just got to take care of your equipment. You can't just run up here and, you know, throw a log down on your sawmill. You got to set it down as carefully as possible. I don't care, you know, what kind of foundation you've got it on. So, but I think that the way I'm doing it, each one of these is going to be over 500 pounds of concrete. Plus I've got, like I said, 11 inches wide, 5.5 inches thick, laying across through here, supported by 16 feet underneath, so it shouldn't go anywhere. Sorry guys, I had to go in there and change shirts. It was just too hot and I was getting that one all wet everywhere. But I have to periodically go and check to make sure that I haven't bumped these, which I know I haven't, but just in case. Yeah, we're level there. So that's what I was just checking on here before I start pouring. All of that's good. That's good. And that's good. Okay. What I'm going to do once these are set up, I will remove this nut, take these off, and then I will probably try to remove one end and take this off so that I can use these two down on the other end. And I could actually leave that one there. But I've got 3 of these made up, and I didn't see any sense in making more up unless I have to tear it off, you know, when I pull it off. And the other thing too is I hauled those 22 bags. I've got to go get another 22 for the next 2, and then the last trip will be 11. And the reason I'm doing, like I said, using my truck is because everything else is loaded down with something. So, but yeah, so these are ready to pour. I'm not worried about it. I've checked and rechecked everything, so they should be set and ready to go. But these, I will actually remove these, and I'll take out these wire cages right here. Once we get that probably halfway, I'll go ahead and stick this down in there. That way, that will hold it up there, and then I can actually pour into this right here and then set those the very last thing. So I think that will work. But yeah, I'm excited about getting these done and getting those 6x6s put on here. The reason that I didn't use that hickory log was because when I actually cut it, it bowed on me. So I decided not to do it. It must have been leaning over the creek or something because it had a lot of stress on it. So it wasn't suitable for me to make big long timbers out of it, but I do have some that are 8 foot that I think that I could use, probably for the little hut that we're going to build for the solar unit. So anyway, but that is the end of this right here, getting these ready to go, and they are now ready to pour. Let's see, get those set where they need to go. There's one there, and one there. You know, I'm also hoping that this cement mixer will last long enough to do this, because when I was finishing the rock, which is the last time I used this, on the cabin up there, it got to where if I would lean it down, having 2 bags of concrete in there was really stressing the motor trying to turn it around. I would have to lift it up like this, just there briefly, turn it down so it would mix better, because I think that it's getting worn out. But anyway, hopefully it will last long enough to do these 5 columns, and then I will consider getting my money's worth out of this thing. But it's actually done quite a bit, so I'm surprised that it has lasted this long for the price that I paid for it. So the solar panels that we're getting are about 4 feet wide and right at 5 feet long. They're 400-watt panels. So the way I figured, I could put 8 up here. I could put 4 and then come down and then put another 4. So there'd be 2 rows. They'll be turned sideways instead of up like this, but that's okay because it doesn't matter. Then I can get 4 more on the next one, and then another 4 on the last one over there, and then that would be a total of 16. So that's kind of what we have in mind. Then we're going to have to come off of the roof with the wire, so we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do that. But I'm going to be building my own frame, so I have to come up with some sort of a composite material I guess I could get to go between the ribs, but then I'll treat a 2x4 and lay it down. We'll screw it in, and that will become what the solar panels will lay on, and then I'll kind of build a picture frame around it where they can't move. But yeah, I think that will work. That way we can get them up off of the ground, and because I think down here we're going to build a little hut that's going to house everything, because we're going to have a little air conditioning unit on that hut so that the batteries and stuff in there, they don't, you know, get too hot. And in the wintertime we might have to provide a little heat. Don't know yet. It may generate enough heat off the batteries to keep it warm enough, but we'll have to wait and see. But I know a little air conditioning unit is probably, as hot as it is probably in the works for that little building. But that will be put here, and then hopefully maybe at some point, like I've talked about before, later on in the future, and we can build a small kiln right beside that. But where I had originally planned to do it was set them on the ground right here, which we could still do that. I'm kind of limited for space without building out and expanding anymore, so I think putting those up there will get them off of the ground, and then we'll put our little hut here, and then maybe have an area for, like I said, a small kiln later, and just move the gardens down the hill, because I do have to remove those few little scraggly trees right there, but move that garden down a little ways, and there'll still be room to get the tractor in between the edge of the building and the new little building that we put there for the solar equipment. That way I can get down in behind to work the garden or do anything that I need to do. As I go behind this, the hill gets a little bit steeper, so I couldn't go very far in the tractor that direction. But I can get down in there, and it would provide me, you know, a place where I could build another small building, maybe for this little four-wheeler at some time, or maybe build a lean-to where I can just park it under there. Who knows? We'll come up with something. There's also a project sitting right here, and it's not the bush hog or none of that wood and trash that I've got there. This is the hole for the root cellar if I ever get around to being able to do it. It just seems like one project right after another, and you know, multitasking is the thing. I know that some people, they might want to watch a video from start to finish and see the whole thing done without any interruptions in between, but not when you're living on a homestead, because something might break, you got to stop and fix it. Might take days, something else might come up that you didn't think about. So there's a whole lot of variables that can happen. But yeah, this is another project that we've got. Then another project, if I can ever get around to it, is actually coming out this back door, which I can't use right now, or I could if I put some steps there. But coming around through here with a porch with a ramp that goes down. I had said a long time ago, after I left being a paramedic, that I was going to have a ramp coming up to my house with enough room that they could actually turn a stretcher on if they ever had to come get me in my golden years, which I'm knocking on the door. Anyway, but yeah, that's another project that's going to have to be done at some point. And since we built that new shop down there, another project that we're going to have is tearing this building down, because it doesn't really match anything up here other than the color. But when we built this, you know, it was only temporary while we were building the cabin, but then YouTube happened, so but we knew it was going to be torn down at some point anyway. I had at one time thought about, you know, making it a place where I could store wood, but since I have went to gas heat. That has changed. And the other thing too is this is a pretty good size area where I had the area, you know, a small area where you drove in, the width of the building, the bank from that side to this side over here. And we thought, you know what, if this was gone, this would be a perfect, like a little island, like, so to speak, where we could build a gazebo down here on this end, have a nice rock fire pit where we could set out in the evenings, and then possibly right here on the side I have a place to pitch horseshoes. But you know, it's funny because I have spent hours and hours and hours in this little shed right here with that sawmill sitting here milling up lumber to build, what do we have up, how many structures do we have up here? We've got the pig pen, that's one. We've got the chicken house, that's two. We've got the outdoor kitchen, that's three. We've got the carport, that's four. We've got the towers, five. We've got the little smokehouse, that would be six. We've got the cabin, that would be seven. We've got the little outhouse, that would be eight. We've got this building right here, the Sawmill building, that would be nine. And then this building down here that we're building would be 10. So that's 10 buildings that little sawmill pretty much, with all the labor involved, built all of these buildings up here. And I'll tell you what, that was a really, really good saw. Didn't really have any problems out of it whatsoever, other than having to change the battery that one time when it went bad here a few months ago. So can't say anything bad about that little Norwood sawmill. I really worked it over, you know, in the last 5 years, but it was time that we move on to something a little bit larger. And the fact that, you know, it had all of these bells and whistles on it as well, and also, you know, that there may be, not only do we have more building to do here, but, you know, if Jennifer does decide to build a home here, there will be an extra barn that will be built, you know, and outhouses, you know, whatever they might need some sort of building for. But housing, you know, outside sheds and things like that, I guess would be a better word for it, that I told them, you know, we're going to go ahead and upgrade the mill. That way, if we can take care of it, you know, then the kids will have a good tractor and a good sawmill, you know, long after I'm gone. So hopefully that, you know, will be something that will be an investment that we can take care of, because a lot of this work is already done on the homestead. A lot of it is smaller projects, except if we do build a barn, that would be a large project. But like this building down here, this workshop, it has taken me, of course I did some other things in the meantime, but it has taken me probably about 1.5 years, if I add everything together, time spent on it, for me to get that far right there. And it is exciting getting the new sawmill. It's just that track, like I said, I'm glad I noticed that, because that would have been a major oops. But I did catch it, and so I think it's going to even be better if I go ahead and put the two 2x6 or two 6x6s there side by side with the timber screws and lock down to the foundation. I don't believe we're going to have any problems with it.